You left off your beard and glasses and fooled the guards around the house. They thought it was he who went in, and they thought it was he who came out when you had strangled and hidden him. But you hadn't reckoned on the different contents of two minds. You were a fool, Kerwin, to fancy that mere visual identity would be enough. Why didn't you think of the speech and the voice and the handwriting? It hasn't worked, you see, after all. You know better than I who or what wrote that message in minuscules, but I will warn you it was not written in vain. There are abominations and blasphemies which must be stamped out, and I believe that the writer of those words will attend to Orne and Hutchinson. One of those creatures wrote you once, "Do not call up any that you cannot put down." You were undone once before, perhaps in that very way, and it may be that your own evil magic will undo you all again. Kerwin, a man can't temper with nature beyond certain limits, and every horror you have woven will rise up to wipe you out. But here the doctor was cut short by a convulsive cry from the creature before him. Hopelessly at bay, weaponless, and knowing that any show of physical violence would bring a score of attendants to the doctor's rescue, Joseph Kerwin had recourse to his one ancient ally, and began a series of cabalistic motions with his forefingers as his deep, hollow voice, now unconcealed by feigned hoarseness, bellowed out the opening words of a terrible formula. Per Adonai Elohim, Adonai Jehovah, Adonai Sabaoth, Metatron. But Willett was too quick for him, even as the dogs in the yard outside began to howl, and even as a chill wind sprang up suddenly from the bay. The doctor commenced the solemn and measured intonation of that which he had meant all along to recite. An eye for an eye. Magic for magic. Let the outcome shew how well the lesson of the abyss had been learned. So in a clear voice, Marinus Bickwell Willett began the second of that pair of formula, whose first had raised the writer of these minuscules. The cryptic invocation whose heading was the dragon's tail, sign of the descending node. Ogthrod Aif, Gebel Ie, Yog Sothoth, Yangi Ai Zro. At the very first word from Willett's mouth, the previously commenced formula of the patient stopped short. Unable to speak, the monster made wild motions with his arms until they too were arrested. When the awful name of Yog Sothoth was uttered, the hideous change began. It was not merely a dissolution, but rather a transformation or recapitulation. And Willett shut his eyes lest he faint before the rest of the incantation could be pronounced. Okay. It is hot. I am tired. I look like garbage. Let's talk about the curious case of Charles Dexter Ward. Last time, this is another Lovecraft vlog. So, hello, as the people of Brood Hollow say. And I'm in a different location in the room. I'm testing out a couple different angles on this vlog thing, seeing where it is. This time I'm more sitting down, a little more comfortable than kind of that pulled back thing that was going on before. Last time we started with the first of the novellas, alphabetically, At the Mountains of Madness, which is an incredible story, absolutely worth the amount of time it takes to read, and is one of Lovecraft's best. Now we're talking about the curious case of Charles Dexter Ward, which kinda sucks. Don't let the intro that I just gave you fool you. That part's pretty cool. The final confrontation with the enemy, it's... Lovecraft doesn't have a lot of these. Hopefully you all can't hear the airplane outside, but if you can, it's just ambiance. So I'm just gonna keep going on it. Lovecraft sometimes has characters who are... Jesus, that plane. Has characters who are really powerful in that they actually manage to learn secrets that can outwit those who are dealing with dark powers or are from another realm themselves. There's kind of a line that's walked where they're never like action movie heroes or genre heroes. You know, they're not magicians really. But sometimes there are people who have studied enough and find the trail and know something that can stop what's going on. that happens at the end of this one, and it's pretty awesome. It's pretty great. Besides that, though, this one is boring. Holy crap. It's just like, this story doesn't have a lot of the stuff that makes Lovecraft great. It's aided a little bit by the fact that if you're reading it in this collection, it's one of the first things you read, so you don't have as much to compare it to. And that helps a lot, but the problem with it is that a lot of what happens in it just pales in comparison to a lot of his other works, and it's also, I think, the longest novella. This one took me a while to get through, because a lot of it is boring, and there's sections of it that are repeated a little bit, and I don't even think this one was published, like, serialized, like one of the other ones we'll talk about later. So I don't even think that Lovecraft has an excuse. I think it just kind of sucks. Basic plot summary is that there's this kid, he's interested in the occult, he's interested in kind of the darker powers in the world and everything. He's a pretty up-and-coming scholar, as a lot of Lovecraft's protagonists are. You can see in his work there's a lot of focus on intelligentsia, people that study old dusty books. A lot of that has to do with the fact that he grew up, looking at a lot of old dusty books. So, kind of wrote what he knew in that scenario, even though that's a tired phrase that doesn't really mean anything. But this character... Jesus, all the sounds right now. Oh well. This character starts investigating darker powers, and eventually it has some sort of consort with a demon, but it's not really a demon. It's a previous version of himself. Not of himself. Of the, like, there's the ancestor that he's looking up stuff about, and the ancestor who he's doing that for actually still has powers to kind of body snatch. And that's what was going on in that last part, is that there's the ancestor is body snatching the real one, and he's trying to summon up old powers that destroyed him the first time, because people never learn their lessons. There is a story later on, a shorter story that's very good, that does this idea strictly better. So, there's not a lot of reason to read this one. You also might notice that I don't have as many of the plot details directly on hand. And that's because when I'm doing these vlogs, I make sure to refamiliarize myself with the material a little bit, but I'm also trying to give you, like, my impressions of it. And some of that is how much I remember. So I know that this story has not left much of an impression on me. There's a lot of talking about families. There's a lot of talking about, like, well, this person lived in Salem, and then they did this, and then there were letters between them, and then they were thought to be a witch or a warlock or whatever, and they kept going and doing their thing. They got ran out the town by regular-ass people because they were doing weird shit. Kept going. I think there's aliases involved. The thing about this one is, as far as I'm concerned, it's not worth your time. It's just, relative to the rest of the novellas. Can I say that? Let's consult the Kindle, actually. For I checketh mineself, before I wrecketh mineself. So that was a little bit that I read for y'all. Ooh. Okay. I cannot for sure say that The Curious Case of Charles Dexter Ward is the worst of the novellas. What I can say is that it is definitely in the bottom 3, maybe bottom 2. So, as far as this one goes, everyone out there, I'm going to have to say, you should skip it. unless you're going to read them all, then by all means, there's still some things that can be gained by it. You still get a little bit of the mystery that Lovecraft manages to build in an individual story. You still get a little bit of that je ne sais quoi. You still get a little bit of the kind of alchemist idea, which is used in some of them. There's a lot of formulae and putting shit together to fight forces outside of our realms. But besides that, there's not too much to glean from this one. This is not a visionary work the way that a lot of his pieces are. And it doesn't even have great concepts or even really, really good patches of writing. The climax excluded. The climax is pretty good. Basically, I would say if you want to read a plot summary of this and then skip to the end and read some of the good bits, I'd probably say last like 5 to 10 pages are probably pretty good. That's not an exact measure, but that means you'll probably catch most of the good parts. Then you could do that. And that might be good. But besides that, I don't really think that people should be spending their time on the curious case of Charles Dexter Ward. I think that's all I've got to say on this one. So this is probably a short one, but these are supposed to be a little quick, and I'm trying to just let them be what they are. So that's it as far as this Lovecraft vlog goes. And this is Carnypop, signing off. Bye.